for coming, and I'd like to personally welcome you and be welcomed, but also who am I to welcome? And if you also feel welcomed, I will encourage you to also interrogate that feeling and ask the person, who are you to invite me? Or may I say it more accurately, who are we? And tonight I'd like to talk about many things. And I need to carefully and with care destroy certain kind of stories, narrative and structures, because there is an almost automatic ontological system that will build you up again without you knowing it. So we have to be extremely committed to the act of destroying the here and now. And we also have to talk about the act of destruction to what is distanced from now and here. And that means what kind of missiles we're going to launch for the there and for the later. And we are going to talk about the meaning of having a distance ethical responsibility and open up what lies there, what narratives are mangling there. And I'd like to talk about and establish an image theory for myself in the image wars, and not maybe more than ever, but like ever, we need always an image theory. But I like to start with the face. It's super used, it's not used old as our biological coding can recognize human face, and I want to use it tonight as a discursive object to play with it, to go things, to go places, and to kind of sadistically enjoy and talk about the face and with the face, because at one time it's a biological phenomena that you relate to. At the same time, it's subjected to face detection technologies that you are constantly want to recognize the face, and we cannot stop booking and archiving the face, and you might think that you are related and you are bound to something that we call a face, and you might even find yourself at some point to see faces in the clouds, in the mountains, and I like to talk about the pattern recognition as a mode of subjective way of relating to the ethical, and what is our relate and what is the face for us. The first word I learned in German after Staatsangehörigkeit, of course, it was schreckliches Gesicht in fast. Don't ask me why, as a newbie in German, you're learning, you're reading fast, but for me it was an absolute start point. You have no idea, you have to go to the hardcore. And I was fascinated, blown away by the schreckliches Gesicht and the way Faust shouts when at the end the demonic messenger comes and answers his call to the fuck the world, I'm sick, get rid of the students, get rid of my university. At that moment, you see the demon coming and you are invited and we need to talk, says to the Faust. And this schreckliches Gesicht, this unbearable face of the messenger, the demon that Faust passes away, and immediately he's offered by some wishes, and he of course goes for the girl. The first wish is super important, we have to talk about, and why the first wishes of humanity is here, the desire. And I like to also encourage you to locate the erotic here in this exhibition, and because it's interesting, and we have to talk about also the subconscious, and it also offers some nightmares of Freud later. But as an I like to establish that media technology at the fast recognition in the flame when he sees in the video installation when he sees this and shouts, "Wer ruft mir?" So we are on the side of call, or someone called me, or I accidentally called someone. But the call is something that we have to talk about, especially today with our with the notion of telephone that we were introduced. What is the worst crime you can imagine? What is the unforgivable crime? And write that. I subscribe. What is infinitely weak? Infinite weakness. I put it there, and immediately after I write down creative power, or powerfully creative. If you can locate the creative power, or the most creative power, in the moment of the infinite weakness, because weakness is something we absolutely have to address, and with it I also talk about innocence, because if you feel penetrated, you feel wounded, if you feel appalled, and if you feel you have to settle down certain barriers, certain modes of address to something that is attacking you, that means we need to talk about innocence. And what does it come from? Where does it go to? And the relationship between innocence and guilt. If we open the guilt, unravel it, in the core of it, there is sitting an innocent being, which represents the core of it. So this is extremely important that we open and look at this, and we need to disavow this secret form of being that is living deep behind the surface. The visuality related to the face, and the visual face, and then the face that is generated inside you. After 40 days of meditation, I saw the face of my teacher, of my master, and he was crying. I raised my hand, and it was wet, and I knew my training is over. Okay, this didn't happen to me. It happened to someone, which I'm telling you about. But my point is, the face of your teacher and the schreckliches Gesicht that is telling you, okay, it's time, and the face announces you that you are ready to go out of the certain mode of authority. That's the face of the teacher. I'm not going to naively go for the lovely, cute, and the face of the child under annihilation, and all in parentheses, I have to encourage you to check out the face of the child, and how does it call for authority. And guess what? The face of the threatened child, the fear, the scared child, calls the authority in you and asks you, beg you to become the leader, the militant leader, and to bring authority in the world that is dangerous to him or her. And there is the moment that I'd like to insert and put my image theory and talk about the over-visible. And more than the visible itself, I'm interested in the over, and who invented the over and the overdose, and is anything ever over? Is the mess we are in gonna be over and we're gonna settle down? And the word over scandalously disavows many of the things that we need to philosophically, politically, and artistically address to. So the over, I'm very interested. And when the performance is over, I like to come to me and we need to talk about it. And over visible, when something is too much visibility, and immediately turns to the invisibility, to an apparatus that actually conceals, and that's the necessity, that's the invisible necessity of the mediation. You might think that at this time of history we need to get rid of all the mediations, we have to call off, we need to have direct relation to the reality, and pass the televisual and and get into the core of the thing that is drinking us out. But I like to encourage you and myself to pause there and interrogate your relationship to the image. If you are in a discursive or in a linguistic mode, or your work constitutes using language, don't think that you are not related to image, and you need to have a relationship to the image. I will come to it shortly. I will talk about what is the notion of virtual. But shortly, while we are at the face and the visible, and the face that comes to you from nowhere, from behind the mountain, and addresses you, and the face always directly talks to you, and that's because it's so much important. And our pattern recognition mechanism sometimes fail, or we saw a face in a beautiful flower or in a soap opera, and but I like to talk about a certain kind of face that as an image come from distant stars, and something that we send our face back. The light from the star traveling speed of light and coming up long after it's gone, after it's dead, and it's beautifully addressed in a story by Arthur C. Clarke, The Hammer of God. If anyone knows it, that I don't like the story, but it has a sub-story in it which says, in the middle of the crisis, where the whole civilization is under attack, it's under annihilation, a religious cult develops out of nowhere that says that in a distant star there are aliens waiting for us, and it's amazing. It's a utopian somewhere, and millions of people start believing in it, and they digitize their consciousness and transfer it to distant star with the hope that they're gonna be downloaded by the aliens there at the end the story vanishes and you're settled. The attack is gone by an heroic man, but those millions of people traveling in the void, sent in the void by the belief that they're gonna be picked up there and materialized again. And I'm interested of those gazes that are looking up and answering to that light that is coming to you. The light that comes and the distance it travels. It's you might find it metaphorical or metaphysical today, but this is important in relation to the darkness that I need to bring you in. And I like to drive you into the darkness and leave you. I'm not sure how can I do it, and what happens to you in the darkness, what you will reach, what you will do, and if I can discursively help you or put things there, and what happens to your recent point of views. And how we can end our constant desire to wrap up the rawness and the disorder of and put it under the grammatical opaqueness. And in the darkness that I'm talking about, we have different shades, and the legitimate bounds of the grammar are a little bit blurry. So, but if you think you are not dealing with the automatic generation of obstacles that we are creating tonight, and my kind of automatic paraphrasing and my paragraph that is almost random, and it brings me back to something really important, that your relationship to the meaning, and if your job or if your practice, your philosophical practice or your political or whatever your art contains that you have to deal with meaning, and be careful, because meaning always have to have a purpose, have to have an ending, have to have an finitude to it, and a philosophical telos attached to the meaning, and many things are happening outside of the circle of the meaning, out of this world, out of this universe, and the act that we are trying to achieve belongs to the madness or to the nonsense. And I'm wondering that if we can carefully and almost complex reach to a form of unintelligible nonsense that can in a way address our kind of micro maneuvers about the things we want to talk about, like image worship that I talked in the beginning, and the issue is image worship. That's actually what I want to talk about, and because someone and the naive belief that someone else is not allowed to worship an image, and if you think the artists here are not secretly image worshipper, we need to talk about, and someone is angry at you and they think you are being selfish, and they are going to kill you for being selfish. What does it mean? Maybe by selfish I mean that an utterance that when encounters an image says that, okay, I see nothing other than here. I see nothing other than X or this. And we need to pause and see, okay then, when someone sees exactly something in something and says that something might be invisible to me and I need to see something there. And we have to be extremely cautious about the things that you think it's invisible and you need to find out and you need to see, because that's the moment that certain metaphysical entities are gonna get born. And the story of the building and your relationship to the building. I need to address also some of the aspects of the architecture here. Of course, I'm not talking about the physical one, and ask certain questions, and also replace the asking with the acts, and because the act of questioning when we encounter a face is my issue, and what kind of interrogation you're performing here when you see the other, and there is something in the alterity of the other that you're relating to, even when it's monstrosity. You need to erase it, you need to undone it, because if there is something to this other face, to this other entity that you're connecting to, that you're relating to, you are identifying with the same again. The face of the other is horrible. It's there to sodomize you. It's there to horrify you. It's not beautiful. It's improper. And by the way, we are super proper here. We are on the proper side of the performance art. And when the other comes through the door, when it happens to you, when you encounter the other, you won't even recognize it. You will police out. You will call off the encounter, and we enter suddenly somewhere else, and we enter the something we call the contract. Or I don't want to illusion myself with the idea of with something I did in the beginning, like welcoming or the act of. There used to be a banner here. It was welcoming everyone who enters, and my question also is here, and that can we ever talk to something, to some other country, to some other entity, without the banner of toleration, without the banner of friendliness, of friendship, because if you can identify something, you are over. The other is gone. And is this building an experimental labo for representation of virtue and or the virtual? The virtual has to deal with the distance, with what we call the distance. And with the distance, I mean something that you see, but you cannot physically touch, and you are bound to a distance relationship to it. In another history, where there wasn't a screen to report you from a distance, time, or a place, when you saw something happening in the horizon, you had the opportunity to choose. I'm gonna stay here, mind my own business. I'm gonna go there. There's a vagueness, there is a physical urgency to it, and there is a beginning of agency there. And that's precisely the virtual. The virtual is not a new invention. It's super old. It's old as we have eyes to see. and we have image body, and we have a feeling for distance. But now there are many things happening to you on the screen, in front of you, close to you, and I'm super confused with the relationship of things to me, and this brought me to two things that we have to do: depression and anxiety. I'm worried about anxiety because it will drive you to do things that you're not aware of and you cannot recognize, and underneath you're working. It's not the subconsciousness that I'm talking about. It's a form of anxiety that works like a traveling agency. If you are here because a traveling agency sent you, well, we are all, me too. This Kunstlergruppe is also sent by Parency, and maybe you're here because you didn't have had a choice, and that's a very interesting choice. By traveling agency, I'm talking about institutional superego or luck or dictate, or I have a hard time to understand the dictate that is coming to me, and it's a very weird and hidden process in it, and which I had to let open, and I cannot close it off. Many things I'm not going to talk about.
Genau.